Good morning, Meleti. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. Kalimera.
It's so nice to have you, and we should say good morning too to Gregory Kontos, who's called in all the way from Athens, Greece. Kalimera, Gregory.
Kalimera. It's
Uh,
nice to be with you again, Meleti.
Nice to be with you as well. You're coming across loud and clear here. So we're very excited about this book. Alec had reached out to me about a month ago and said I wanted you to know. We talked about that a few years ago, Alec. You remember? And I was so pleased to see that you were involved. And then Alec had sent me a copy. When I read it, I was so excited. I think it's a beautiful book. And I guess I want to ask first about how did you two meet?
Sure. When I inherited the diary from my mother, basically, I wasn't really sure what it contained, and I really wasn't sure what to do with it, honestly. And upon looking at it further, I realized that basically it was a diary from a war campaign, and that I was trying to figure out, first of all, how could I share that with my family? And then even beyond that, I was thinking this has historical significance. What could I do with it, basically? And I started to read books about, past campaigns. I read some books about some Greek authors. And then when I looked into the diary itself, the writing is really small, very hard to read.
Yeah.
I really concluded I could not really do this on my own, basically. So I started to look through social media to basically see where can I find a resource that could basically help me not only with the ability to read the cursive text, but also to translate it. And lo and behold, I was very fortunate to discover Gregory. We discovered each other, and we started to collaborate and work together. And it's taken about 4 years to get to where we are today. So I'm thrilled that we've reached this milestone.
Really, 4 years.
Yeah.
That's just amazing. So, the actual format of the book, how was that decided? Because I love the way it's laid out.
I think I give credit to Gregory for a lot of those ideas as far as the layout, the two-page layout. We can see the Greek and English. Also, he had a resource in Bata that helped us also with some layout. I was fortunate to recently visit Greg in Athens, and we discussed some of these issues in person. But I think the creativity and the ability to make it a pleasing work, I really give that credit to Gregory.
Gregory, it's a beautiful book. Have you done this level of transcribing and translation before?
I have to admit that this was the first project of this scale. So at Greek Ancestry, we do translate, all documents and diaries, but this was our first publication. And as Alec noted, it was a very good idea to have both Greek and English text. The entire diary text is transcribed, translated. It comes with a very thorough introduction, as well as footnotes. And then, as you, Meleti, noted at the beginning, we also have copies of all the diary pages at the end of the publication. So what we wanted to do was to offer an as complete as possible picture and understanding of this family heirloom.
It's wonderful that you footnoted it. It makes it a scholarly book. It makes it one that people can study. And I was reading it, and I was pausing and looking up these towns, looking at your footnotes, because I knew some of the history, but the specific battles and the campaign and this and that and the places, I didn't know. So I think it's beautiful how you staged it in the introduction and you footnoted the document all the way through, and that you did it both in Greek and in English. And Alex said to me when I started reading, and I wrote and I said, oh, "This is really good." And he said, "What are you reading in Greek or English? I'm curious." And for me, I started with the Greek, and then my eyes would go over to the other side when I didn't get to a word that I found a word I didn't know. So, but now in history, to have a basis in history, Alec, you came from Greece. You came here when you were 11 or 12.
Now, I was born in Greece in Nymphasia, and I came here at the age of 6.
Oh, 6.
And basically, my father never discussed his experience,
Right.
even though the picture that's at the front of the book was in the living room on the wall, prominently displayed, but he never discussed it with my siblings. So we never really even knew about it. It was one of those things where it was a mystery. So this really revealed, part of my father's life we really knew nothing about.
It's the physical book that you've brought in here now, and I was visualizing it as being twice as big as that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it's only, what would you say, maybe
I think it's like 4.5 by 5.5. It's
Yeah.
very small, and the script is very small. You can see how, and the writing is very small. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful penmanship
It really is.
with ink, and it's amazing how it survived.
Yeah. Gregory, you had, growing up in Greece, you must have learned all about these wars and what was going on at the time, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that's correct. But Meleti, yes, I was taught all this in school and then in university, but it's so different when you have a first-hand account of a war. And this diary really gives you a whole different dimension of what we were talking about here.
It is. Yeah, that's
This
true.
is not just Greece versus Turkey, or Greece and the Allies, or Venizelos versus the king. This is a simple farmer boy, from the mountains of Arcadia, experiencing all this and having, his own opinions, his own mentalities, and this is what makes this so precious.
It's beautiful. Diaries, as a historian and archivist, we're always looking for diaries just for that reason. But this particular one, his poetry, you feel like this human side of him, because he really didn't want to be in this war. He was more of a royalist, right? He didn't favor this expansion idea that Venizelos had, but yet he was a soldier, and he was out there, and the poetry was so beautiful and deep. Alec, I want to ask you, in his later life, was he poetic in that way? Did you find any other writings? It was just...
No, that's really amazing. We never really did, and I thought the poems were shockingly revealing, and I've had people call me and say I was reading the poems and I was crying.
Yeah.
I mean, they really bring tears to your eyes. But he never really showed that kind of emotion or deep thinking, so we were like totally shocked.
Yeah.
But also very happy, and I think that it presents a subtle part of his personality that I think genetically we sometimes see in our children, in our sensitivity side. So I think it's wonderful in that respect.
It's interesting to me that he went from pages of poetry, oftentimes, dedications to Constantine, but then it went from there to this very graphic description of the day-to-day. We're going over the hill. These people were burned at the stake, and all of these. It was horrible, right?
Yeah.
And the poetry is gone just about from the situation, and then it ends.
Yeah.
So it's really something. How is this being received now? It's been I saw that you had the article in the newspaper. Congratulations.
Right. Yeah, I think I view this as really a very narrow special interest opportunity, basically, and I think for the people that have an interest in that topical period of time, it's being well received. I visited when I was in Greece recently the War Museum in Tripoli and Athens. We'll be providing copies to them. Greg has also shared it with people that he knows in Greece. So I think for people that are interested in that period of time, it's a really important piece. There is exhibits at those museums. We hope to get this as part of the exhibit. So I think in that respect, for the people that love history, this is a jewel.
It is.
But if a lot of people really honestly are not really interested in history, and there's an old saying that the victors write the history, basically. So in this war here, this was a tragedy for the Greeks and for the millions of people that were displaced by the result of this war.
Right.
That were in Anatolia, whether they were Greeks, Jews, Armenians. It was a tragedy, and this has significant geopolitical implications even up till today. So in that respect, if you're a student of history, this is sort of like a speck of history that puts you on the front lines.
Yeah, but Greece had lost both of the Greco-Turkish wars, so it was a situation. But what happened after that was also interesting, and So it's just, I think it goes beyond that, though. It makes history come alive for people. As we read these history books, as Gregory was saying, you're taught the history, or you read it,
Right.
and it's sort of dry. It's not, but this is personal. What about for you, Gregory, when you were going through the translations? Now, you tell us about the language. It was written in Katharevusa, or somewhere between Katharevusa and the Motiki, and you had to figure that out, and you chose to translate it letter for letter the way it was written. So
Exactly.
yeah, which is beautiful.
That was decided so that we could maintain and highlight the authenticity of this text. And, combining this with your question before about the poetry and then let's say, the more standard military entries in the diary, it is so interesting that Padelis, he would use Katharevusa to, narrate the military activity of the unit he was in, but he would choose the Motiki, the more folk, real language of the people, to express himself in the poems. And all the poems, they are written in what we call the kapedasílabos lyric.
A classic meter.
Meter, yes. Which, if you read it in Greek, it sounds like a song.
Yeah.
Like a folk traditional Greek song. So, reading this diary, it was, and there are so many, instances where Padelis is being humorous, or, more dramatic, or melancholic, or, very passionate and feeling this victory vibe. It was so interesting transcribing and translating this piece.
It's do you have a favorite section? Is there a favorite baby line of poetry or something in the diary that really grabbed you?
I'll tell you. So in the poems, I really liked, the way he was blaming Venizelos or whatever. That was funny. And then there is one line towards the end of the diary where he says something like, showing his desperation. He says, "Poor soldier, what can you do now that mud has reached your knee?" And, it says, "Take whichever way you want." And that really shows his desperation, and perhaps, the vanity he was feeling as this war was getting worse and worse. And that perhaps also explains why he suddenly stopped writing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting chills now. I just was thinking that diary's right in front of me. Alec has it in his hands, and that diary went through this. It's just amazing that it survived. It really is. Yeah. This is so you've gotten some media attention here and some in Greece. I think it's going to do very, very well. And are you at any time planning to come this way, Gregory?
Oh, of course. I love being there. I was there, I think it was 2 years ago now. Yeah. And I would like to visit in 2024, but maybe 2025, and I think we should definitely organize something together with Alec to, promote this publication. Yeah. And, it's not just to, to encourage people to buy their copies. It's more about showing to people that there are heirlooms that we have, and we not necessarily pay attention to, or we don't know what they are at all, but they hide such a significance for history and family history. I mean, these are all in our hands, and in many cases we just don't know about it.
They're precious. They really are. And unfortunately, it's nice that Alex surfaced this and published it, because, when he passes on, maybe someone else will look at it and say, oh, it's just some old book. And, we have a throwaway culture. And we were just having a little talk about this. The question in my mind is now, is this generation really going to be able to take care of our heritage? Where we see so much of it being discarded, and we can't plug the leak there fast enough. So this is beautiful. I've not seen any other diaries from this period. I've not seen any other diaries translated and presented this way in a book. And I look at the book and I can think of a half a dozen people that I want to send it to as gifts. Just now at the University of Florida, I was down at gave a lecture at the Center for European Studies. They had asked that they wanted, the events. I had to talk about the Greco-Turkish Wars and the effect that they had on our culture here. So it was interesting, and there were questions and discussion, and I think, boy, this book would go very, very well there in a class, and so that we're not giving someone the encyclopedia articles to read, but they're actually reading a personal account. So we hope that more of those come out. And Alec, tell us now, do you see yourself giving talks about the book here? If you were asked to give a talk, would you come and do that?
I would be happy to do that. I haven't really given it a lot of thought, honestly. I think the primary value I see here is really to allow people to get a glimpse of what it's like to be in this horrific thing we call war. I think my father did not think he was going to survive. If you read the diary, he thought he was going to die. Yeah. He was writing this text, and he was basically, it was like a goodbye letter in a lot of ways. So, listen, I think if you read about the horror of war, this is an example of that. And I think that it's hard to get young people interested in these kinds of things. And I think it's a challenge. And I think that the other thing, as I said earlier, is that we have this thing called history revisionism.
Right.
What really happened? If you read like Wikipedia, and then you try to match it up with the diary, you say, wait a minute, this is not what the... So I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And I think the other thing is, geopolitically, this had significant impact on that whole region of the world that in some ways we're facing today. So I'm happy to participate in any kind of educational processes with schools, libraries, museums. I think I was just feeling so fortunate that we stumbled upon it. We just were lucky to find Gregory do the project. Now we have a gem that is preserved beyond us. And I think to the degree we can share that with others, I'm very, very happy to do that.
Our guest this morning is Alec P. Karys, and joining us by phone is Gregory Kontos, who is calling from Athens, Greece. They have just prepared and published a book from Alec's father. It's a diary. Pandelis C. Karatasakis is his name, and Diary of a Soldier in the Asia Minor Campaign, 1919 to 1921. And Alec, how can people get the copy of the book?
Sure. Right now, the book is available on lulu.com, which is obviously a website. If you go there and go to their bookstore, and then just type in the search box Karatasakis, you'll see it. It comes in 3 flavors: hard copy, paperback, and audio. And we're now exploring other possible places to have it available. People are always asking about Amazon. It's not on Amazon yet, but that'll be something we'll address going forward.
So lulu.com, it's LULU.com.
Correct.
Visit their bookstore, search for Karatasakis.
There it is. 3 versions come right up, basically.
3 versions. The hardcover is beautiful.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if you can do it, definitely get the hardcover edition. And all profits from the sales, do you want to mention that?
So all profits from the sale of the book are going to go into the village of Nifasia, where my father was born. It's a small village. It's sadly dying out, and they have a number of community projects. And I was just thinking about this. How much of a miracle is it to realize that my father had no clue that his diary would benefit his village?
Right, yeah. So maybe a presentation there at the village.
They have a little library. I'm sending a copy there, and I've actually recently visited.
Yeah.
And they have a website. It's on their website. So I think they're very interested in figuring out how to help this going forward.
So can we just ask you now about your father and your family when you came here to
Sure.
America? Because he didn't talk about this at all with you. It never came up in
Right,
conversation or anything
right.
like that. What did your father do when he came here?
So he was a carpenter, and the important thing is this is not about my father's life story, as Greg has reminded me. That's potentially a different project. He was a carpenter.
Yeah.
We had 6 children. I was the youngest of 6. So he didn't really speak English. So he would get on the bus with a piece of paper that had his bus stop. He would go to his work, and God forbid he lose that piece of paper, he would get lost. So my mother and father really never really became fluent because he was at an advanced age. We came here in 51. He was 53.
Oh, yeah.
And the book is dedicated to my mother and father who really gave up all their dreams to come here.
And why here? Why in this particular area? Did they have relatives?
Yeah, my uncle lived in Boston, and he sponsored us and brought us here, basically.
Yeah.
And I think, you know how the Greeks are. They go where the Greeks are, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's remarkable that he was able to do this. That he kept the diary and that you have printed it out. Gregory, now in talking about all this, do any other thoughts come to your mind about?
You mean about?
After having gone through this process with the book, is there anything
Well,
else in terms of
Well, I agree that this project is something that certainly is of interest to the local community in Arcadia, and we should encourage the locals to to take a look and see what this is about, and also relate through this publication relate to what their ancestors went through. In the book there are many names of other soldiers, not dozens, but maybe a dozen names of other soldiers. And all these were people living the same experience as Padelis. Now, as I said before, every family has some sort of an heirloom, and it's just, up to them to start delving into it and inscribing it within a broader historical and social context of that time.
Yeah, we definitely want to, we always try to encourage people to find their photos and document them, and this is very important that we do this kind of thing. So I've gone through all my questions this quickly. I don't know what more we could ask you about this book here, but I was very, very pleased that Alec, that you published it. It is something that I'm going to go back to. I'll have to say, when I was going through it, I mentioned earlier that I was going to my computer or trying to find a book to look something up, and it was exciting for me. I learned a lot, and I think I'll learn a lot again when I read it again and explore it all the way through. So I want to thank you both for coming in, Alec for you coming in, Gregory, and congratulations on your work. And we hope to talk with you again soon.
Thank you very much, Meleti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meleti.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Alec, Karys, and Gregory Kontos talking about the book, The Diary of a Soldier in the Asia Minor Campaign, 1919 to 1921. It's a book that's available on lulu.com. And if you know Alec, we should have asked how Alec. Well, before you leave, Alec, tell us how can someone get a hold of you if they wanted to?
Can they get you my contact information through you? That'd be fine.
Sure. Yeah, you can write to us at Grecian Echoes 1 at AOL.com, and we'll share the contact information.
Right.
Alec, thank you again for coming in. It was a great interview.
My pleasure.